Yeah, we are. Right. Right. Good on you. Thank you. Gather round.
Channel 7 have agreed to do a story if we agree to be quiet during the news.
Oh, okay.
Sounds fair?
Gather round, Gather round, everybody.
No, you don't You're going to do fuck all for it. Oh, sorry, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to, kids, I'm sorry.
Don't make me angry, Don't make me angry.
Nah. Okay, we've just had the meeting with Nigel Scullion, and as per usual, the diplomacy factor kicked in, but all he said is we looked at some of the issues that are in this document. He wanted to know a lot about sovereignty and how he sees that working and how we see that working. So there's obviously a very serious thought in terms of what they're going to do in terms of sovereignty, and they realise that it is an issue. And it's interesting that he did ask, how do we see that playing out? How do we see that going to work in terms of exercising sovereignty in this country? So they obviously got the message clear that sovereignty is an issue. The other thing we talked about was about Western Australia and some of the issues that are happening in Western Australia. And he said, well, they're issues that belong to the state and that they're not part of the Commonwealth. But what we'll do, what we've asked him to do is that as the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs at the Commonwealth, to facilitate meetings for the delegates and others in Western Australia to meet with those ministers in Western Australia to talk about those issues. So we want him as the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, Commonwealth, to arrange those meetings so those people can talk about issues that are affecting them there. And we basically said the same thing. For every state, we want him to facilitate those meetings, to get those ministers to the table, get those governments to the table and talk to us about the issues. In terms of the, what do you call it, removal of children, he was saying there's state laws, but of course he understands the seriousness of it, and basically said, well, let me park that over there and let me think about how I'm going to work that out, because there's a lot of issues in this document that some are state issues, other are Commonwealth issues. So we have to work out how that's going to work, and so we give him time to have a look at that. But we're just suggesting there that it might be that in those who are staying behind, just knock on his door every day or every second day and ask him where he's up to with the issues that are in the document. There are other issues, but I'll hand it over to Jen and get Jen to relay some of the other issues that we talked about.
I think they really still don't have an understanding of what we're talking about when we talk about sovereignty. I think maybe we can be a guide into the future about what we mean when we talk about and articulate our arguments about sovereignty. And we talked about a lot of, I think we ranged across a lot of issues up there. The fact that our law is still not recognised as a part of the law of the land here is one of the issues that needs to be resolved in a way that our people are happy with the outcome. The destined custody issues, that's I think a raging sore right around the country. Our people still being killed with legal immunity and impunity by the police. That's an issue that we'll be coming back to. I think the meeting in itself, we wouldn't call that a victory. I think it's probably the beginning of a process, a dialogue, and if we can maintain that dialogue, they'll certainly get a lot better advice than they're getting currently from their advisory committee or anyone else that calls themselves an advisor to government. But I think it's a beginning of a dialogue, and we can ensure that our points are being continuously put on the table and reiterated and raised over and over again with this process. So, you know, they're not going to. There's no instant solution to this problem. I think we need to go back and work a lot harder about what we're talking about when we're talking about our connection to country and how important it is to us. The fact that they still don't understand our language about land and our connection to country is probably one of the issues that still they need to be educated seriously about a lot of stuff that we talk about every day. And hopefully this is the beginning of that process and an honest and genuine dialogue, not the lies and the rubbish that we're spoon-fed all the time by them. And hopefully we can ensure that that happens. Education, we did.
Yeah, we got a bit of everything out. We got the grandmothers. We got to go back to our states and deal with them. He said if we hook up with some meetings, he'll come down and talk to us about them things too. I think the conversations went like they normally do with ministers. But he said he's willing to meet with any of us back in communities or back here. We just got to let him inform me that we want to meet with him, and he'll come to our parties.
Well, I thought I felt really overwhelmed walking in there and coming back out again. I was happy to go in and represent our country down home, Wurundjeri people, and also to all you fellas sitting here today, waiting for us to come out. But it's just like every other place. Like we say, we've got to keep constantly educating white fellas on our culture. I mean, how long do we have to do this? You know, we've been here for 40, 60,000 years and we're still bloody doing it. I mean, our kids are gonna be fighting soon, you know, for the same sort of thing, and probably sitting up there and walking up there doing the same thing that we'd just done just then. Hopefully not, but we ask for change straight away. We don't want to keep waiting for things to happen, you know. We'll go back to our community, we'll come back and this thing is not working. Go back to our community. I don't know why I'm bothering with
It's working.
is it? Oh, go back to our communities and then we hear some bad news about something's happening back home. Children are going to keep being taken away. Our deaths in custody are still going to happen. Everything is still going to happen. You know, Australia is known as a racist country. It's always will be, and there's not going to, unless you change people's attitudes and the way they believe and they think they're doing the right thing for us. You know, how many times do we have to prove that we can make our own decisions? So hopefully we'll keep fighting, and I think we've asked him, someone has asked him if he can come down and talk to you fellas and make an appearance. So I hope that's on the cards. That'll happen in a minute.
All right. Well, I gotta say, first of all, what an ugly house in there. That place was shocking. Everyone's scurrying around. And yeah, I've never seen a minister or seen anyone in a meeting so bloody nervous. He was scared. Playing with his fingers, moving things on the table. It's like I was in my first job interview, but reverse situations. I think this is the start. We've got to hold him to his word now that he's going to actually meet with representatives that we choose. He made the mistake of saying he's all for community empowerment and against broad stroke approaches that paint us all in the same picture. We've got to hold him to that now. We've got to stop these movements like the Northern Territory intervention, the closures of communities and income management, child removal, things that paint us all in this backward picture. And I think we're making a step towards that, but I've got very low amounts of trust for the government. We're not going to ease up in any regard. We're going to keep sitting out here every day. We're going to encourage them to come out to our space. I don't want to have to go in there, sign these bloody things and get visitor passes and get IDs of an identity I don't even want that's been forced upon me by this Commonwealth. They're going to come out to us, sit in front of our people and know that these meetings shouldn't be happening behind closed doors. Exactly. And we're going to put it to them. So don't think we're walking away just because we had a little meeting. out on lunch, so I think I gotta go search for something.
Toto.
Well, this one, yeah. I think it's the beginning. Look, I'm from where I'm standing at this present moment. I'm quite happy from the summit in Alice Springs, which was in November, to where we are today. Scullion is going to say what Scullion is going to say because he's a Minister for Indigenous Affairs, but he also has a problem, and that problem is the Indigenous Advisory Body chaired by Mr. Mundine, who's not representing us the way that we should be represented, and I raised that in the meeting. But I think one of the things about this is we've got to persist with what we're doing, because as it's already said by Roxley and everybody else, it's not going to change tomorrow. We did ask Nigel if he can come out here this afternoon and see you. He said he'll check his diary. Don't hold your breath, but I hope he does. But look, I think this is great. We were in the right spot at the right time when all the media was here, and this went right around Australia on the day that we was doing it.
And the world too, eh?
And the world. And look, we're getting recognition. We've been interviewed by different medias from around the world because they are starting to understand that there is a problem in Australia for Aboriginal people. Always has been. Always will be. But 40, 60, 80,000 years. Now, one of the things I keep remembering is the Irish done this for 700 years. We're going to do it for less, and we're going to get our country back. And it's good to see you all.
The international stuff, Michael.
Chris.
The international stuff, we should have won that.
It was first time. It was good to meet Mr. Nigel or whoever. But he bounced back when we asked about sovereignty and that, and he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said to him, well, sovereignty is going to happen. What are you going to do? He's got to sit with us. He's got a list of demands. And he said, we're not moving until some action is taken on it. And we're going to sit, and he had made the mistake of saying, these doors are always open, so we can go there any time, any day, and say, right, are these actions being taken?
Did I hear you say doors open?
Yes.
Yeah, we heard him say doors open.
Just on another point, we did raise the international issues as well and reminded them that Australia is in fact and has been perpetrating the crime of genocide against Aboriginal people. And we also reminded them that I think we were talking about money. Someone was talking about money, and he said, where are we going to get the money from? And I think it was Vanessa who said, well, you're taking it all out of our land, so, you know, we know where the money's coming from. And he tried to make the point that, oh, no, it's the taxpayers' money that is getting. But and so we reminded him of that. And Renetta,
Still on our land.
and Vanessa said, yeah, but you're still on our land, anyway, you know. So, and we talked more about the land rights. We said something about native title as well, and saying how native title is actually ripping our communities apart and ripping us off in terms of our rights in this country, and that native title is really not working. And we also talked about the fact that you know, there's a massive wad of money sitting up here that's in the Aboriginal Benefit Trust account, as well as we didn't mention that word, the Aboriginal Benefit Trust account, but he knew about it when we fronted him on the fact that Australia, the government here, the Commonwealth government, has been collecting royalties for Aboriginal people since 1942. And so he tried to play that down and avoid that, because we're saying that's our money. You shouldn't have that money, basically, and we need to talk about that. So these are some of the bigger issues that we have to talk about that goes with the whole question of sovereignty. So other than that, he's been put on notice that he's got a few meetings coming ahead with us, and he's got a few more confrontations.
An international court action.
And we also advised him that some of the stuff here, we will be taking these issues internationally, and we'll make these issues.
That's where we'll get answers.
Yeah, we told him that.
We told him that's a waste of time. And he did talk about the fact that he's very much aware of Western Australia and the prison populations, and he's also without sort of admitting he's a bit disgusted with the way in which Western Australia are operating their business over there in relation to Aboriginal people. So we got to push him on that and make sure issues are coming up. Yeah, and we did raise the issue of incarceration. Yes, so incarceration was an issue as well that we talked about, and that we have to deal with that. What I think we should be doing as well is asking him to arrange meetings with all the state and territory ministers, get him to organise the meetings for us to go and sit down and talk about our issues in that state. That is the state's responsibility, and we want him there at the table because he's the Commonwealth Minister. They do have the power up there to pass a law to override the states in respect to the wrongs that they're doing, and that's what we got to push. Okay. Any questions or anything?
They know that the grandmothers are coming on Friday, don't they?
I don't know if we're going to be here all week.
Yeah. Them poor fellows there, look, they got a job for the rest of the month now. Right, thanks.
That meeting up there, to me, that was all about power and control. We had no power and we got no control. Understand that. All the power's up there, all right? They'll make the decisions. We can say whatever we fucking like, but they'll make the decisions up there. What we did here today is one of the best things I've seen. For this small group, we've gone worldwide. Just that puts pressure on that there building right there. Doesn't matter what happened there to fucking Swan with Abbott and that. We don't care who is the leader of this here government up here, whether it's Labor or coalition. They're all the same as far as I'm concerned. So this is what we want to talk about though, is power and control of our lives. We want the power and control over where our future, our kids' future. We want to decide what that is. We want the resources to do that. And like I said up there, for me, the starting point for me in this whole conversation began in 1788. When they first landed in Botany Bay down there, all Aboriginal people right across this country were free and independent people. We had the resources and the means to support ourselves. To me, that is the starting point. And that's where there's been no negotiation. There's no negotiations up there. There's just talk. But talk is good because then at least we've got a door open up there. We've got to take this minister up on his word and we've got to test him out. I mean, whether he likes it or not, he's even been sidelined by his own government because the Prime Minister is the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, not Scullion. He's taken all of his power away from him. And basically, Scullion's just a figurehead, right? And just like the advisory body, just a figurehead. They're supposed to be able to have all the expertise on our lives. They know fuck all about us. All they want to do is keep draining money for themselves. But that's what we got to do, though. We got to take power and control ourselves. And what we're doing here today is the beginning of that. And that's what we got to keep doing. We cannot disappear. We cannot go back into the shadows. We cannot go back into our communities and stay out of sight and out of mind. What we did here today, we've got to continue that. We've got to be visible. And if we can get more of us coming, the better. And one day, this thing we call sovereignty, what I call freedom, we will all realise what that is.